morning or afternoon, everybody, depending on where you're watching this. This is the PGA DFS First Look Show for the WGC FedEx St Jude Invitational. I'm joined today, as I get Vetri back from being a mile high and a little vacation, and I got Geoff back in his lair there as well after being out lakeside for a week. So welcome back to your humble abodes, gentlemen. Geoff, looks like for your week, I mean, one of the first bets you told me about last week was Richie Warrenski. That was a pretty nice payoff. Was he the highlight, or was there something else this week that made it a little bit better?
No, I mean, Harris English was in there a little bit for me at the end. He didn't really get it going enough on Sunday. Not shocking. It is Harris English we're talking about, but he was in there a little bit, gave me a little bit of a sweat. But yeah, I had a piece of Richie. I mean, honestly, the whole week I was just like, oh, it's nice. He's up there. I wasn't really expecting him to close it out. I mean, he's kind of a journeyman. He's never really been in that position. I honestly kind of would have been a little bit shocked if he had. So I had really low expectations for it. It was really nice that he birdied the last because that got me. I also had him like a piece of top 8. So at a book that just offers, each ways to top 8. So that really helped out. Made it a profitable betting week, or basically just like break even or slightly profitable. So that was big. But yeah, it was nice to have him up there. It's just, I don't know. I have really low expectations for players like that. So I was never really that like super pumped about it.
Sure. And it not just you that benefited off of that birdie on the 72nd hole from Warrenski, which we'll get into here in just a little bit. Before we do, I want to bring in Sal Vetri, who I'd like to start off with a positive, because for my week, it was so negative that I need to talk about the positive. And Sal, you might have been a mile high, but you gave us Cameron Tringale as one of your top dungeons like me.
No, that was it. It was just top 20 betting. And then there was a little bit of a sweat with like Max Homa. He was just lingering around. It never felt like I had an outright on him. I had an outright on him at 90-1. He finished T3, but it never felt like he was actually going to pull something off. There was a point where like he was going to have to go for birdie on the final hole and you're going to have to get a bogey from Thompson. And it just never felt like that was going to happen. But he hung around at least to stay in tune outside of like showdown play. Because, man, I mean, you were saying that your week was bad in the 4-day slate. Mine was brutal. I could probably pull up my exposures. I had like 49% Fleetwood, like 37% KC. It was just rough from the go. Like Will Gordon and Fratelli, or not Fratelli, EVR were up there as like my top 6 owned guys. So, yeah, I think I was like lucky to be getting 4 to 6 lineups in my 150s.
Yeah, wait until you see my player allocation. It's going to sound exactly similar to what you just said.
Right.
I think I made across the sites, I think I made 285 lineups last week. I had 1 6 of 6. And in fact, that 1 6 of 6 actually was in the top 25 and the $5 heading into Sunday. But my guys on that team fell apart. So it was, as one can imagine, a pretty tough week for me there. But I made a couple of lineups on SuperDraft, and I ended up cashing in both of those. So maybe it's time to spend a little bit more time on SuperDraft, the sponsor of our show here. And I want to thank them for that. So if you haven't tried it out, now is a great time to do so, as the future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft right now offering contests PGA, NASCAR, MMA, maybe MLB. I mean, we're offering it, but we're hoping we're going to get it and continue to play it after the outbreak from today. But we know MLB is coming, NBA is coming back, so you get to enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft using promo code Awesemo10, and you get $10 free on your first deposit of 10 or more, and $20 total free on your first of 100 or more. Download in the App Store or play at superdraft.io. SuperDraft, no limits and more winning. So, Sal, you mentioned right off the top when you were speaking about Michael Thompson, and I just want to bring up 7 years. I mean, that has got to equal perseverance. I mean, this guy, in the last 7 years, he's had to go back to the Korn Ferry Tour 4 times. In fact, he had to go back to the Korn Ferry Tour at the end of 2018 as he lost his card. He missed the cut at the first 2 qualifying events there, ended up coming in 6th and 21st to get status back on the PGA Tour for the 2019 season. He held on just barely for this upcoming season, and now we've got another 2-year exemption. So really extreme perseverance. Love to see it. Sal, what was the most impressive thing about Michael Thompson, who, I don't think we've mentioned once on this show or maybe any other shows, kind of coming out of nowhere, 1% owned for the victory?
Yeah, I mean, coming out of nowhere would probably be it. But outside of that, I would just say I mean, you have to get hot with the putter, so he gained like 7 strokes there, but probably just the approach play. Like that was something that probably never would really see coming out of nowhere too. This would be the field to do it. You don't have to like battle it out with somebody else gaining like 8 or 9 strokes on approach, but just the irons. It seemed like, I mean, down the stretch, you saw a couple of shots that he just had to make, like over water with hazards in play, with guys pushing him from behind, and notable names, Tony Finau, Homa to an extent up there. So yeah, I would say some of his iron play down the stretch and just really showing some of the stones to actually close it out. Where like, I mean, the week just kept getting worse for me. I like played Sunday Showdown and I was just completely fading him when the 4-stroke lead fell down to 2, and I didn't have any faith in him closing it out either. But yeah, I mean, he showed it, and iron play was the big surprise for me on Sunday.
And Geoff, after the first 4 holes. And not to move quickly through the topics, Jordan, I apologize on the backside as I'm going to talk about Tony Finau next. Through 4 holes, Finau made a 30-footer on 1 or 2 on the first or second hole. I'm like, this is the day. I texted my friend that, follows golf. I'm like, hey, man, Tony Finau's finally going to win. He didn't, and the Sunday blunders continue. He looks like a totally different golfer out there.
Yeah, it almost, I don't know, it almost felt like it was going to be, you just look like he knew he should be winning this event, right? And I think he should be. But again, it's just so tough. I just don't think people realize how tough it is on Sunday. And we've seen players have this mental block, really good players for so long. I mean, Paul Casey is a great example. He had a good 3-run stretch there where he put himself in so many good positions on Sunday, never closed it out. Then he closed out a couple events in 2 years. Kevin Na is the same deal.
Yep.
A couple other players. So it's going to happen for Finau eventually, but it's just tough, man. Like it's part of the mental game out there. I think when you get to Finau's level, again, he expects things of himself now. It's just more pressure, right? So, and just quickly on Michael Thompson, I mean, I tweeted this out, but that dude is one of the best putters on tour. Just consistency wise, he was a former number 1 amateur player in the world. Reminds me a little bit of Brendan Todd. Just a really good iron and putter when he's on, and fully capable of taking down an event like this, weaker field events. So he's a guy I have bet actually like numerous times just because I know the potential is there for a breakout like this. So a little disappointed I didn't think about him at all last week, but at the same time, I'm not going to beat myself up over it because when guys like this strike, it's kind of random. So
yeah, it sure is. I will say I was listening to his press conference. It was really, really heartfelt. We should have had the nappy factor known. I mean, he adopted a child in March. Here we are 4 months later. We've seen that happen a couple of times. And in fact, I believe his last win came right around the exact similar time that he was doing something to this. This is his second adopted child. So it's kind of a weird, crazy story there. Also, last note on him. Winged Foot, he said, by far is his favorite golf course in the world. We're heading there in September. Sometimes that translates to good play. Obviously, it's a U.S. Open, so probably a little different. But Michael Thompson does pepper fairways and good iron play and good short game. So maybe just someone to look at for that low-owned millionaire maker option.
He almost won the U.S. Open in 2012. I mean, he was one shot back of Webb Simpson. So it can happen.
Yeah, definitely keep an eye on that. So Tony Finau, Sunday blunders. Problematic. However, Adam Long, a guy that we don't talk about often, he has put himself into contention on Sunday a couple of times. The first time he beat out Phil Mickelson and Adam Hadwin. Here, he almost comes from 4 or 5 back to win. Geoff, did that really impress you? Should this guy be on our radar, especially in these weaker field events now?
Yeah, probably more in these weaker field events, but kind of like every week, he's a bit of a streaky player. But when he first won that event, I kind of just wrote him off. Almost like a Martin Trainer where, okay, this guy just came out of nowhere. Yep. He's probably going to just drift back and I won't really need to worry about him. But then he started showing up and he'll pop off with like a big round in the weekends. He's a really solid competitor. I mean, he's someone I know over the last probably 6 months, I think I even rostered him a couple of times before the break and got some pretty good results. I know he was a little bit on my radar here. I ended up going a different way, but I think in these weaker field events, especially when his price gets depressed and he's coming off like a bad miscut, if he can light it up in pretty much every different area as we saw. So I really like Adam Long as a player, someone I'm going to keep just my eye on, especially like you said, in these kind of events.
Yeah, Sal, same thing with you. I mean, 2 times now where he's really been in contention and put himself right there to win the golf tournament.
Yeah, it's been close too, like a couple of times. I think it was the Honda. I remember when everybody was at the DFS Open, he was kind of trending and it was just everything was clicking there, just not the putter. And then you got the putter to click especially on the weekend here. So I think he gained 3 strokes putting at this event. So everything just clicked. Like there's been 2 or 3 times this year where the approach is firing and just nothing with the putter. He loses like 3 or 4 strokes. So everything ended up clicking, and he popped off on the weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Another 2 last quick notes on our quick wrap up from last week in terms of the players. There was no top 10s. It was either a top 5 or nothing, an 8-way tie for 3rd place. First time we've seen that in quite some time. I guess if you come in the top 5, you come in the top 10, right? But still, just for positional purposes, first time I'd seen that in a while. And what that caused us, as we can move into our DFS review of the week, it did cause us a bunch of players coming up around the same points or exactly the same amount of points. As we bring in, we'll quickly run down this list. Michael Thompson, obviously number 1 last week, 132 points. Charles Schwartzel, though, coming out of nowhere, 119. Adam Long, who we just mentioned, 117. Robbie Shelton, also coming out of nowhere, 116. Alex Noren, 112. Tony Finau, 110. Emiliano Grillo, also 110. Cam Davis, 109. And then the important one here that I want you guys to remember for one picture is Richie Warrenski and Charles Howell III. Both had 107.5 points. Keep an eye on that one just for 2 seconds, and we'll talk about that in a second. In terms of ownership, we see on the right-hand side, it was a bad week for the chalk. In terms of the top 10 owned, we had half of the guys miss the cut, including Fleetwood, obviously DJ with the withdrawal, Paul Casey, Doc Redman, Lucas Glover. Just a bad week overall. And owned in the top 10 owned golfers of the week ended up in the top 10 points. So just a bad week overall for the chalk. Which, again, could, if you faded most of the chalk, this was the week where you could have cleaned up, although Tony Finau would have been important. As we're going to see here, as we can go into our Millionaire Maker review, and I wanted to bring up Richie Warrenski and Charles Howell because they ended up with the same amount of points. And believe it or not, that birdie on 18 from Richie Warrenski, moving him from a tie for 11th to a tie for 3rd, made the Millionaire Maker split 3 ways. One with the same lineup, and then one with, instead of Charles Howell, it was Richie Warrenski there. Crazy, though. I've never seen anything like that. 2 of the entries, each were single bullets, and the other one was a MME player, which we will see his allocations here in a little bit. But, I mean, it's just crazy. The fact that it was a tie with 2 different lineups, and it was a split lineup. Just a crazy one overall. Sal, what do you make of that? I mean, first time we've seen something like this happen in quite some time.
Yeah, crazy, like you said, with the finishing points, that it perfectly lands on any other person who just goes bogey or birdie on those final couple of holes. It splits this whole tie up a bunch. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because they just avoid the landmines, right? Like, especially the people making single entry lineups. Like, there was maybe 5 guys from like $8,000 and above, 5 or 6, that didn't get cut. So you end up hitting the guy in the 9K range, hitting the guy in the 10K range that don't get cut, and then home is the one who pops off. So yeah, I mean, single bullets, that's really impressive. Like, if you're playing, I want to see what the exposures are for 150, because I couldn't get away from just the 10K range. I was trying to. I was like actively trying to, and it was just tough to. So I want to see what he did for his 150s to have that type of a lineup pop up.
Yeah, absolutely. Geoff, any quick notes on there before we go into our pro review?
No, I mean, just probably that Alex Noren ended up being like the key there. Obviously, the low owned dude that kind of popped off under 5%. And yeah, at 7,500, I think taking a shot with Noren in this kind of field actually made quite a bit of sense, especially as, the rest of the lineup was like actually a little bit chalky, even though, they avoided most of the heavy chalk. So I like it. I like taking a shot with Noren there. And I kind of, even for on a week where so many of the big names busted, I don't know. It's kind of just it's not that crazy a lineup, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, it's not. Total ownership was 92% for the one with Charles. I'm sorry, the one with Richie Warrenski was 92%. The one with Charles Howell was 89%. They were separated by 3. So, like you said, it wasn't too against the grain, but at the same time, it didn't have who most people would say, DJ or Fleetwood or Casey. And what he did was instead, in this one lineup, or even if you look, when we go to the other guy that won, that did the 105 lineups, which we can go actually into now. We can go into our pro review. That's a good segue there. You'll see that he ended up having a lot of guys miss the cut, so he kind of got lucky here. But let's start off with Alex Baker, our own Alex Awesemo Baker, and see where he landed this week. And I'm sorry to say that it looks like he landed on Tommy Fleetwood, as did I, and sounds like Sal did as well. Tony Finau at 34%. Brooks Koepka at 32, Paul Casey at 28, so he really couldn't avoid the top end guys. Johnny Vegas at 22, Dustin Johnson at 20, Charles Howell 17. That was a good find there. Seifert, Eric Van Rooyen, Matthew Neesmith, and only 4% Michael Thompson. So it's 6 guys over 20% owned, but 7 missed the cut, 84 total golfers. What, Geoff, surprised you about all those picks? Obviously, hindsight saying, oh, well, we shouldn't have picked any of the guys that he did, of course, or the 7 that missed the cut. But did anything stick out at you? The one thing that stuck out for me was Tommy Fleetwood at 50% of his lineups. That's much higher than what Alex has been doing. So he must have felt like there was some leverage to be had there.
Yeah, maybe just, and this is kind of how I felt the week before, this week too, but I just didn't really want to play heavy on certain players. Like I didn't really want to play heavy on Dustin or Brooks. And with, not that many elite players in, it probably led to more Tommy Fleetwood. I think if I had been doing like 150s into the milli or whatever, I don't know if I'd get to 50 Tommy Fleetwood, but I probably would have been heavier on him too. So I think that's probably why he ended up with so much Tommy Fleetwood, if I had to guess. It's just really for lack of better options. And, maybe just catching Fleetwood, who I don't want to say he was underpriced last week, but again, he was less than Tony Finau. You're getting a little bit of an ownership break there. I mean, obviously Tommy Fleetwood's still like a top 15 player in the world. So I assume that's kind of where his thought process was at. Other than that, there's really nothing else I have to say. Maybe Johnny Vegas being 22% kind of sticks out a little bit, but I didn't really think he was like a poor play or anything. There were some players in the 7,400 range and low 7K range I definitely liked just as much, and I thought I had just as much upside. So that's maybe the only other player that sticks out. Maybe Chase Seifert. I feel like that was just chasing, I guess you could say. But, other than, he still only had 15%, right? So it's not like that big a deal. It really just, maybe Vegas was a little bit high. But again, if he really liked them, then 22% isn't killing it. So
No, it's not. When we look at switch over to my lineup, and what I did was I took my $5 MME, the one I do 150 in. I haven't done 150 in the Millionaire Maker in 3 or 4 weeks, so wanted to switch it up and show this one as well. I ended up on Paul Casey, 36%, Fleetwood, 30%, Doc Redman, 28%. Tony Finau and Dylan Fratelli weren't bad for me at 27 and 23, but then I had Eric Van Rooyen, Jonathan Vegas. I said on the show that I'm going to lose money on Sahith Theegala this week, and I did lose plenty of money on Sahith Theegala this week. Sal, who was your biggest miss outside of Fleetwood Casey range? Did you have any other big misses like Doc Redman or Eric Van Rooyen?
Oh yeah, everything here. So I'll go down my top. So yeah, I had Fleetwood at 49, Casey 37, Finau 26, EVR 25, Gordon 24. So I DJ 19, Redman 17, and then like Howell, Harman. So some guys start to come through, but it was too much at that point. It was like outside of Finau, it was like 6 of my top 7 owned guys missed a cut. It was similar to what Alex has here. I excluded Brooks from my player pool. I had him in there at first, but it was just like giving me same level of the field ownership on like every 10K guy. So I figured I'd take some stance. I guess it mattered a little bit. It got me a little bit more Finau, but at the end of the day, it really didn't do anything.
Yeah, it was certainly a tough week when, like you said, I think there were only a couple of guys above 8K that ended up getting through the cut. So let's go and check out Mr. Justin McMahon, the human Cespedis, who took down second place in the Millionaire Maker a couple of weeks ago. Last week, he had a little bit of a tougher week, and this week, it seems like he went down the same path that I did with Doc Redman. However, my 28% to his 79% certainly looks a little bit better. Then he had 69% Lucas Glover, who also missed the cut. Did have a decent find with Richie Warrenski in half of his lineups, but had more big misses like Hudson Swafford, Sam Ryder, Chase Seifert, Russell Henley. So it's probably wasn't the greatest week for Justin, but as we said, this is how you play it if you're playing to just strictly either win or lose. This is how you play it. If you don't want to worry about your bankroll and you want to either go for gold or probably go for not a lot of lineups cashing, which, hey, listen, I didn't have a lot of lineups cashing either, and I only did 39% of my player pool. But lo and behold, this is the way to do it. Nothing really surprises me there. I think Doc Redman was a decent play, Lucas Glover, etc. And when we switch on to the guy that won the Millie, or at least split it, he also had Doc Redman as his top owned guy. 54% of his lineups were gone right away, but he had a nice base with Max Homa, Alex Noren, Richie Warrenski after that. So definitely some interesting lineup building from the Millionaire Maker winner, but surprised with the allocations that I see in front of me. He was able to get it done. Sal, does that surprise you seeing the allocations that he was able to come out with in those allocations, come out with a Millionaire Maker winner?
I mean, I guess so, with just Redmond being up top again, but just in general, like you get a decent, and also Fleetwood, all these guys, I guess you get a decent amount of your core to pop off. Really, Homa for the most part. English just gets through, does a little bit better on the weekend. Really, Saturday is when English was doing well. But yeah, I guess a little bit of a surprise. Like when you name up some guys and you lose like 4 of your top 6 zone guys, you're missing the cut. It can get a little bit difficult to pop through, but that's why you play like 150. Like if this was a 20 max, you're probably not seeing the cash line anything. You have like literally 3 lineups pop off. And that's all you need. I think it was like earlier in the year, might have been right to return from break. I forgot who the low-owned guy the Millie Maker winner had. He had him in one of his lineups, and that's just all that it needed. So, yeah, I guess when you have enough up top to get into a couple of your lineups, you get a 1 6 out of 6 to pop off, whatever it is. I wonder how many 6 out of 6s he had. That'd be interesting to look at. Yeah, one pops off and you're good to go.
Yeah, if you watch this show, I can't even actually. It's like Helis Onba. Geoff, you want to try and pronounce that screen name for me? What am I missing here?
Hell S on B. I don't know, man.
Well, if he's listening to this show, if he wants to tell us how many 6 of 6 he got, that is great. Yeah, Geoff, were you surprised when I put these allocations in front of you that a Millionaire Maker winner came out of it?
I mean, yes and no. He did have over 50% Max Homa, right? So when you have a player like that pop off, that's really good value. That's really going to boost obviously the lineups Max Homa is in, even if it's only a few of them. I think the other factor is, yeah, he busted on Fleetwood and Redmond, but those were really high-owned players, and there were so many other high-owned players that busted, not even just the guys in this lineup. So he was also overweight Harris English, who like, despite, being chalky and not really doing that well on Sunday, he still ended up being in the winning lineups, right? So, massively overweight Homa, massively overweight Noren, and massively overweight, well, not massively, but overweight Richie Warrenski, that's going to get you a few good lineups, just being overweight there at that 3. And it's obviously a little bit lucky that, they ended up in the right lineup and stuff like that. But, when you do go overweight that much on a player like Noren and Homa and they go off, like, you are going to get some really good lineups. So he was lucky and at the same time, like, pretty sharp at the same time to be that overweight on those players. So
for sure. And definitely maybe a little bit more aggressive than what I do, but not as aggressive as Justin there. So an in-between strategy, I'll call it, that certainly obviously worked out well for him this week. So something that didn't work out that well for me was trying to play Dustin Johnson in the $200 single entry. He was in about 20% of my contest, but 30% of my bankroll. So I ended up losing out on that Dustin Johnson withdrawal. But let's go ahead and review our $200 lineups. Jordan, if you want to just, whichever one you want to pull up first, we will chat about. The only one to cash on the board last week was Geoff. Geoff put together a pretty good lineup. He had a little switch right before lock that may have cost him a little bit, which we'll talk about in a second. Here's my lineup. I was really happy with Doc Redmond. Luke List, I thought, was going to come in really low owned in the single entry. He did. Richie Warrenski was the chalk I wanted to play here. Thought Mateus Schwab at 7K. The masses wouldn't connect to him. They didn't. Neither did his putter, though, sadly, leading the field in strokes gained tee to green. Then I chased Seifert, and then I decided to throw in DJ here instead of Tony Finau. Totally crushed me. A good lineup? Not really. You really just didn't need to play DJ here with how the winning lineup was going to be built. It was a mistake I will definitely not make again. You guys don't even have to comment on it if you don't want to. Pretty bad lineup. I think the only thing good I did here was Luke List at below 10% ownership and 90 points. Let's go to something better. Let's get something better on the screen, Jordan. Let's get me off of it here. If you have Geoff's on there, we can talk about his next, since that's a little bit more positive. Geoff, why don't you tell us a little bit about your lineup? First, the good stuff, and then you can tell us the switch that you made at the last second.
Yeah, no, for sure. So this was a 3 max entry lineup, actually. I did enter the 200 single, and it was awful. It was pretty much as bad as this. I put this one up, though, because it's a little bit more interesting to talk about, quite frankly. And it did end up cashing. I was on, actually, like a lot of the good plays you could kind of say this week. I mean, I had a bit of Homa. I obviously liked Richie Warrenski, had Tom Lewis. And what I ended up doing is when I first made this lineup, I had Warrenski and I had Tom Lewis in for Wise and Hoffman. So, at the end, I think it was Wednesday night, I decided to get a little bit of exposure to Aaron Wise. It just ended up following that I took Warrenski and Lewis out of this lineup, spread them out to a couple other lineups, ended up with Hoffman and Wise. And I think this was my only Hoffman lineup. And it obviously killed me. So I was really trying to avoid like the 10K range outside of Finau and the 11K guys this week. So I wish I had made a few more lineups like this. Obviously, I had a little bit too much Paul Casey exposure as well, just because I could not get away from it. And I didn't really want to go super overweight on Tony Finau. So I had another lineup similar to this that cashed in like a smaller GPP as well. It didn't quite get there, but it was like a 5 of 6. It ended up doing pretty good. But this was the one that really could have challenged for like, and especially in a 3-max with a smaller field. So, definitely. It's just the way it tumbles. It wasn't even something I'd say it was like last minute fiddling. It was just, I was just spreading out my player pool a bit. It ended up that this one ended up getting switched. And, I live with the result. I probably won't even dwell on this one this much. I found this week incredibly difficult, quite frankly. And I usually like these scrubby events. So I'm kind of just glad it's over, to be honest.
Yeah, the 6 of 6 percentage this week was the lowest that I can remember. It was close to 1 and 2% in the contest. So absolutely, totally insane. Sal, let's just go over yours just quickly. I mean, I know it's very similar to mine. It's not great, but I think talking through how you ended up on those guys is just as important as looking back and saying, okay, what am I going to change this week in the process?
Yeah, I mean, I think 2 out of 6 was my highest owned percentage of my lineups. I went through the cut. Looking back on it, I'm trying to be critical of overall everything. I was very high on like 2 10K plus guys in lineups. So just going from there and getting to the rest of my lineup, it was tough. In 150 max, I couldn't get off of it. I faded Brooks. I tried to lower some projections, and they were just still popping up relative to like the 9 and 8K range builds. But in this build, I went with a similar approach and spent all the money, which I don't usually try and do, but had enough lower owned guys that I thought it would work out. Tringali comes through, Fratelli comes through, and then nobody else does. So Fleetwood, I guess looking back on it, you can say the layoff, right? We've seen guys come back from the layoff, whether it was Tiger and Hideki and they struggled, but then we've seen probably the far majority of guys come back like Hatton and Cantley, and even Paul Casey, his first event back, and play completely fine as well with all the other guys who came back week 1 from the break. So I guess Fleetwood, there's something to say there, but I thought Gordon was fine value. Hadley was just a guy to fill out the lineup at that point. There's a couple other options in that range, but he was just one that I ended up going to. I would say that, it was just a bad week for the specific lineup and all my lineups at that point. Building 2 10K guys, you couldn't have done it, right? Only one 10K guy makes the cut. So at that point, if you don't have Finau and you're going 2 10K, your lineups probably aren't cashing, or at best, like they're barely cashing. So it's just the way that it went this week. I still think looking back on it, you can say the Fleetwood just with a long layoff, but I still probably build 10K in these similar situations, 2 10K guys pretty often.
Especially in this type of field that does not have a typically strong 8 to 9K range.
Right.
For me, it was the right thing to do. It's what I did as well. And Tommy Fleetwood comes out on Wednesday. Now, granted, it was a scramble. He didn't miss anything. Now, he putted first as well in the scramble. He didn't miss a thing. He comes out on Thursday and Friday and literally couldn't make a putt. He shot 1 over, which was stupid because he laid up on 18 as well, or shot even, and he lost like 4 strokes putting. I don't suspect that'll happen. He looked relatively solid everywhere else. Not great, but decently. So now we can move on to this week, dual event, but looks like we're only going to get one DraftKings event for the WGC FedEx St Jude Invitational. But this kicks off 2 really, really good weeks of golf. And really, for the most part, we've got, I would say, a month and a half of really strong golf coming up, starting with this week, ending with the U.S. Open in September. Fast and furious. So there's no better time to come on and join Awesemo. Of course, we've got the MLB back now, the NBA coming back on Thursday. So if you want a chance to win a free pass, check out our Twitter handle. We're giving away a free monthly pass. All you got to do, free weekly pass, subscribe to our podcast channel and leave your Twitter name or Awesemo handle in there, and you'll be entered to win later on this week. So check that out. Of course, all the sports coming back. It's a good week to do it. So we have our first no-cut event in a real long time, since the WGC Mexico, which was basically 4.5, 5 months ago now. It'll be a nice change of pace. And what I like about it is we're going to get 4 rounds before a major to really evaluate the golfers that we think could win next week. So, Geoff, do you find that to be a little bit more of a benefactor? We're getting a guaranteed 4 rounds with a lot of these guys. I don't think we can say that about most majors, but we're going to get it in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, I feel like there's a lot of players who are going to benefit from this no-cut event this week. Guys who have maybe just been struggling to get going. I think the perfect example is Paul Casey. We can definitely talk about him a little bit going forward, but I just feel like guys who've been struggling to maybe just get it going in the first couple rounds, I think they're going to come in here a little bit more relaxed with the no-cut event. So it's definitely, a big couple weeks. I'm pretty excited for this week. I generally don't get too excited for the WGC. Sometimes I feel like it's a little bit of a week where I'll sort of take back a little bit of exposure, whatever like that, and not get as up for it. But I think with the major next week too, we've seen this event play before the PGA Championship in a lot of years in August, and it was always a really good barometer of who was going to do well in the PGA. And now that it's back to this schedule, I'm really excited for this one because I want to see who is really going to come to play. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they win or they close out the event, but I want to see who's there, for kind of on the weekend and stuff like that and playing well. So I think this is kind of like a two-pronged thing for me. I want to see who's going to win, obviously, but I also want to see just who's in really good form and looks ready for next week. So
definitely, Sal, same kind of sentiment. You excited to see these guys for a guaranteed 4 rounds? Well, let's cross our fingers. We hope we're going to see them for a guaranteed 4 rounds.
Yeah, WD is your only way out. I saw somebody just say, I think so. I didn't actually even put too much thought into that yet about heading into a major. You're going to get to just see 4 rounds out of these guys and see whose game is just really all there. So, yeah, I think it's going to be exciting. I think it's just what we saw when we were at Mexico when Reed won. You ended up seeing just birdie or better guys you can rely on a little bit more. You don't have to worry about, like Fleetwood going out there and having a double bogey or 2 double bogeys in a round and that like costing him the entire weekend. No, you have 1 bad round, you have 2 bad holes really, and then you're fine for the entire weekend. So yeah, trying to hit up a lot of these guys up top, especially scorers, is probably looking at this week.
Yeah, and let's talk about TPC Southwind. It's the golf course that we'll be playing on. It moved here. The event has been around since 1950, or in the 50s, I should say, not 1950 itself, with the Memphis Open, and it moved to here in the late 90s. Of course, history. If you've played video games or you play the newest golf video game, the golf, the Golf Club, DGC, that's a prominent course on that system. So if you want to see what the course looks like, you certainly can. Some notes about it, but it's a par 70. It's 7,300 yards, roughly, give or take. 11 water hazards that do come into play, especially on the 2 par 5s. You got to carry water to get over to the green, but they are both reachable. Bent greens with small greens, 4,300 square feet. So almost 50% less than what we had last week, where I did see some 90-foot putts, 88 feet to hole, a couple of those going on. That won't be the case this week. It actually makes the greens, once you're on them, very, very easy. One of the top 5 easiest greens to putt on. I mentioned the 2 par 5s, 4 par 3s, and the rest par 4s. Sal, why don't you tell us a little about the fairways and driving on the course?
Yeah, so fairways, in terms of fairways, being able to hit fairways is going to matter a little bit more here, at least for me, weighting it wise. So it's tougher to hit these fairways, a little bit thinner, and so your off the tee is going to have to be a little bit more accurate, so weighting that. And then same thing when it comes to greens and regulation. So if you want to be able to score and be putting for eagle or birdie, you're going to have to also have some accuracy and have that weighted a little bit higher. Driving distance, I guess it's going to be a little bit higher here because it's a par 70, so it's kind of sneaky. It's like a little over 7,200 yards, close to 7,300. So you're getting the par 70, which is going to make it just feel a little bit longer. So when you come in with the driving distance up, you don't normally see that on like these types of 7,200, 7,300 yard courses. But it's going to be this week a little bit above the tour average. So what I'm doing is basically weighting accuracy and a little bit more for the greens and regulation. Scrambling seems to be a little bit bigger here or a little bit better here, but that could just be because they have to scramble more. So it's not anything significant for me to like weight it a lot more. So mainly just accuracy and greens regulation and driving.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you in our chat. Our chat is super astute. I had written down bank greens. It is not. It's Champion Bermuda. I apologize there. And it is, that makes a big difference. It makes a significant difference. It's 2 totally different types of grass. So I want to make that clear. It is not bank greens. It is Champion Bermuda. They switched from Bermuda to champion Bermuda a couple of years ago. I had that in the notes, so I apologize. Thank you to Mr. Rockus B888 in our chat there for that note. Geoff, we've got Sal just mentioned 62% of the fairways hit, maybe around 66% of the fairways, 62% of the greens. Scrambling doesn't seem to be that hard, 60%. What do you make of that? And how about some good performers here over the last couple of years?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the course definitely, to me, it reminds me a lot of Valspar, something you'd see with longer, skinnier fairways, longer par fours. It's tough. I mean, it certainly can play tough. I mean, the 11th hardest course in 2018. So Dustin Johnson, he got to 19 under, but it still played really tough. I mean, this isn't a course where you're going to see a ton of 63s. You might see one or two, but I think it lends itself more to players who are just really, really thumping the ball well. And if they come in and putt well, they can definitely go low. But it's not like you can just come in, putt well, and get a good score. You have to be doing everything well. So that's kind of what we've seen the last 2 years with Brooks Koepka and Dustin Johnson. Bigger hitters off the tee, but I really think it's more just like ball striking and throughout the bag they did it. So yeah. I wouldn't emphasize distance too much. I think it's a little bit of a factor, but again, Daniel Berger, obviously. So really the last 4 winners of this event, really good ball strikers. I think those guys all ranked in the top 30 in strokes gained tee to green for the year of their win. We've also seen guys like Billy Horschel, Cabrera Bello. I think Charles Schwartzel has a pretty good result here. Tommy Fleetwood was second here. They're pretty much generally players you just consider like high up there in tee to green stats, consistent ball striking, good all around games. It's not really a venue where I think you're going to see like a Michael Thompson type winner who just gets hot with his putter and his irons a little bit. It's more it's really what I wouldn't say it's quite on par with like Muirfield being a championship venue, but if the wind gets up here, it can play extremely tough. So
it definitely can. And you mentioned a couple of things. Dustin Johnson shot -19. The second place guy was -13, so he had a 6-shot win there. A couple of things just to wrap up TBC Southwind. You mentioned the ball striking is so important. Over the last 5 years, the winner in ball striking have come in the top 3 in the event each and every single time. So just goes to show you how important it is here. Because the around the green and green complexes are not hard, that's typically why you see the best ball strikers win here, is because you don't need to be that effective on the green or around it. However, I'm going to mention at the 3M Open with easy greens, again, maybe bigger greens, but relatively easy statistically, we saw some of the best putters putt super well again there. Guy like Brian Harmon, he scored 100 points last week or close to it and came in like 41st for the event, 26 birdie or better for the week. And why I bring that up is because if you get a guy that is giving himself a lot of chances this week and is typically a really good putter, that should help them. The easier greens should help the better putters, as well as it does help the not great putters. It is going to help the better putters putt even better. At least that's what it showed us last week. I don't know what will correlate it to this week, but just wanted to bring that up. As we move on down, and we got all of our odds and pricing out before we got on the show, which is always good. That's probably 4th or 5th week in a row. Maybe that's just going to be standard now. I'm just going to call it's going to be standard. So we're going to go over our first clicks and bets. Last week, Sal, who wasn't here, still gave us Cam Tringale. Geoff gave us Richie Warrenski. I gave you Satiq Theegala and William Gordon. So really, really great bets there. It was a pretty terrible week, but we're going to do better this week. And hey, listen, as long as our guys don't withdraw, we've got 4 days to get them back. My first look, and I'm going back to this and Geoff, you're going to smile along with me on this one. Shane Lowry's 150 to 1. I mean, he won this WGC event, not here, but won this event a couple of years ago at 150 to 1. I feel like he's got to be darn close.
The odds are big enough to do it. I definitely gave Shane Lowry a look this morning. I'll probably throw a couple darts in that range as we go. I wouldn't be shocked if he fell on my betting card at some point. If these greens do help bad putters, that'll be really good for Shane Lowry. And look, we are expecting to get a little bit of wind. So whenever there's a little bit of bad weather in the forecast, I think that can help him. I definitely don't mind that call. I didn't go down as far as you for my first click, although I do like some guys in that range. There's a lot of interesting Euros in this event. Danny Willett. I will be betting Paul Casey at 90 or 100 to 1. But the first guy I clicked on was Gary Woodland. I really wasn't sure what odds we get on Woodland. We got 45-1 at most places, which I'm just fine with. I mean, this is a player who's, done pretty well. He's putting really well. His approach game has been absolutely nuclear in a couple spots already. That's where you're going to be emphasizing more. He's just got to have like an okay week off the tee. He's been a little bit suspect there, but Gary Woodland's typically like a top 30 guy in strokes gained off the tee. I really like him for this event. I think he's flying a tad bit under the radar, and that was my first click.
I like it. Sal, I saw a couple of notes that you put on Twitter before, a couple of bets. So give me your top one out of the guys you mentioned on your Twitter post there.
Yeah, so I'd probably say, so the one I ended up going to first was probably Xander, and it was 22-1. I thought he might move into the teams. I think he has in some spots, but it was just an early bet to get the best number on him because it was going to come down to like him or Webb. I wanted somebody with that profile of, at least lately, Xander's putter has been really well since the restart. I think like 4 to 5 events he's gained. The one he didn't, it wasn't drastic, but just in general, the irons being there, an accurate player, and having the pedigree of winning these types of events, and no-cut event is going to help him probably a lot. So I ended up going him over Webb. Still might bet Webb, but that's the first one that I got. That's the highest or the shortest odds I ended up going to. On the complete opposite of that, longest odds I went to, I placed 4 bets outright, was Connors, 110-1. Some of the things that you were talking about, like around the green play, being a little bit easier here, that is by far his biggest downfall. So if you can stick with somebody who's accurate off the tee, somebody who's going to come in with good irons off the tee, plus the approach play, the ball striking, then yeah, I'll buy into a 110-1 Corey Connors, and just hope that these greens kind of level it out for everybody, and you're getting 4 rounds out of him. So we've seen him be able to be a first-round leader to go out there and just have the best round of the day on a Saturday or Sunday. It's just about putting 4 rounds together. So now I don't have to worry about him blowing up on Thursday, and even if he does, he can come back a little bit. 110-1, I like that.
Yeah, definitely. And someone just mentioned it, which they must have just posted their contest pretty recently, was FanDuel. Paul Casey is 8,800 over there. So getting into the value range certainly will probably be pretty popular. And don't remember his DraftKings price offhand, but
78, I think.
78. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Top 20 bets, which we've done pretty good on here. Okay, so this one, I'm going to give my first one first because it's silly and stupid, because I just went to the end of the board and I was like, whoa, what's this guy doing here? And it's because he hasn't made a cut. He's been over here for like 3 months and hasn't even – I shouldn't even say he hasn't come close. He actually missed it on the number twice. It's Jazz Janawatanan. And the reason why I'm picking him at 16-1 for the top 20 is he's guaranteed 4 rounds, and he's playing at a course where the winning score probably doesn't get past much, -14, -15. Maybe similar to the PGA Championship, which he came in the top 10 of last year. So maybe this is his time to start. Honestly, it's just a pure dart throw at 16-1. I'm like, he's probably better than Lucas Herbert, who's 8-1, or at least similar type of player to Lucas Herbert at 8-1. So just felt like decent value, but we can pretty much write it off. Sal, why don't you give us a little bit of a better one than Jazz Janawatanan?
No, I mean, I like it. Look, you just coming in naturally have like a 26% chance for that to hit with the smaller field. And then if there's any ties, you probably got like a third. But yeah, I have 3 right now. I placed 2, and I'm probably going to place a third one. But Connors, same thing. Connors is 3-1. Same thing as the outright reasoning. And then Todd's 5-1 in this one. Todd might be like the most accurate player off the tee, which I think is going to matter here. There's a lot of water hazards that we didn't talk too much about, but those are going to be a concern. And look, it's just a 78-player field. And I think that Todd, especially when we go to DK, going to be undervalued in a lot of spots. Don't think he wins the event, but I think he can sneak in a top 20. And then I went with upwards of the board guys who I like to just win outright. Plus 150, 2-1 in some spots, just Patrick Reed for a top 20. We saw him win the last WGC. This is the exact type of thing that you want out of Reed. Again, if he's somebody who has a blow-up hole, like Casey did a couple weeks back, shooting a snowman on a 3, and that ruins their chances of making a cut, it doesn't matter as much because he's probably the best overall opportunities player in this field, or one of the best because of his putter.
No doubt. Geoff, Paul Casey and Jordan Spieth are both 2-1 in for the top 20 this week as well. I saw maybe a little bit of value there. I mean, we don't have to spend any time on Spieth, but he is coming off a top 12, both here and last time out, top 13 last time out. Any better values for you, or did you like some of the ones already mentioned?
I mean, I think if you're betting, yeah, I'd probably take Casey over Spieth. It's really close, though. Maybe, I don't know. Actually, don't quote me on that. I've already bet Paul Casey outright, but again, 90, 100-1. His approach game has been fine. It's just massive, like brain farts around and on the green. My first click for top 20 was Tom Lewis at plus 500. He's T5 and greens hit last week. It's a player who's like put up top 10s against some pretty good fields. You know, the DP World Championships for the Euro Tour, that was a limited field event. You know, a couple other fields over in Dubai. He won a Corn Ferry Tour event. He's a good player. I mean, T12 at the Rocket Mortgage as well. So he's playing better. He's been like top 30 in greens hit over his last 2 events. I think that's going to play well at TPC Southwind. So plus 500, that was kind of my top 20 dude that I'm definitely going to be hitting up. I really like those odds. If you can find better, I mean, obviously do that, because I was hoping to get maybe like a little bit better, but I'm fine with plus 500. And again, if I'm going a little bit lower odds, I don't know if I'd go all the way down to Casey or Spieth. I would probably rather take a chance with a guy like Shane Lowry at like plus kind of 275-ish, whatever he's at. I don't even know if that's right. It might even be a little bit bigger than that. Yeah, plus 350 actually here I'm looking at. So I think that's pretty good for a guy like Shane Lowry. You also have like Matt Wallace in that range, who I don't mind. So probably Wallace and Lowry will be on my top 20 radar too.
Yep, I think those are 2 quality picks. And again, with only 78 players in the field, certainly your opportunity to capture some of these is good. So, all right, let's move on to our first DFS reactions. But before we do, I just want to mention our restart promo that we have going on with sports coming back. Sports are back, and we're giving your first month of Awesemo Plus half off when you use promo code RESTART at checkout. That's only $45 a month for Awesemo's leading DFS projections, tools, and content for MLB, NBA, PGA, and so much more. Celebrate the return of sports with this great deal. You won't find a better deal anywhere else. This offer is valid through August 3rd, so 6 more days. And again, we got MLB back. We got NBA back this week. Got some Millionaire makers in both of those. So myself, I don't think I've ever played MLB DFS, okay? But I saw there was some overlay on the FanDuel. I loaded up Alex Awesemo Baker's projections in the Fantasy Cruncher. Put a little bit heavy on Boston Red Sox because I'm a Boston guy, and I made $150, and that was just like that, 10 minutes before lock. So come in and join. Perfect time to do so with all these big ones coming back.
You should look into, and just for anybody, SuperDraft's MLB stuff. Like the contest yesterday, the big one usually gets like 75% full, but some of them are like 60% full. Like there's a lot to take advantage of there.
Yeah, if you're looking to build your bankroll and you're looking to test some of these strategies, it's a great time to jump in now when sports are coming back before the masses come in, let you get a little bit leg up, and of course build a bankroll, which is the longer you stay in this sport, the more opportunity you have to hit big. That's what I've learned in my time of doing this. So let's see if we can help somebody win $500,000 this week. That is what we are playing for on DraftKings. We are also FanDuel decided to put some good contests out this week. Finally, I shouldn't say finally. Again, after every single contest they put out last week filled really easily. I think it's, 250Ks? Let me check here. They just put it out. $250K for the $15 and the $555. DraftKings put out a couple of good contests, and checking SuperDraft. Normally they post right around 3:00. My guess is it'll be either 4 or 5K to first this week. So Sal, first reactions here. Pricing seems pretty good. We got John Rahm. We got Patrick Cantlay moving up above 10K. Maybe that could be here to stay, which is, I hate that. And then we got Rahm leading it, DeChambeau above 11, JT above 11 as well. And then, of course, Rory up there. So a good 5 core. I mean, I expect we'll see these 5 up above 10K all the time. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts right away with a lot of these WGCs, you could build any way you want. So it's just easy to, like last week, kind of, the higher owned guys with the 10K range are just hard to get away from them on my end. This week, it's just easy to go with any type of a build. But up top, I think Rory stands out the most for me here. It's a couple of factors. One, just the pricing's pretty tight up there. Like outside of Cantlay, everybody's pretty closely priced together. Normally when that happens, Rory projects out best for me. And then you factor in just WGC. This guy just rakes in these WGCs. I think he's finished like top 10 in like all of them except for one in like the last 4 years. You get 4 days of Rory in a competitive field. And now he's not the world number one, if that factors at all for Rory. He's probably the guy I like the most here. Just they're all so closely priced. And then because of the drop off, probably Cantlay after that.
Yeah, I'm getting made fun of for my Red Sox. That's not a surprise. They're pretty bad now, but I guess it was a good first night to get on them. Geoff, how about you? Top end, these 5 guys, pretty good studs. I mean, we're probably going to see these 5 above 10K all the time now.
Yeah, I have pretty similar thoughts to Sal. I mean, I do like Rory here for a bounce back, coming in as the number 2 player in the world now. Got to be a little bit of an aggressive thing here for Rory now getting, pipped by John Rahm. We'll see if he just goes all out to try and get that back right away. He was pretty good here last year too. He didn't even really like strike the ball that well last year. He's still T4. So I think the Bermuda probably helps Rory a little bit. He hasn't played too well around the greens at Memorial. I think these complexes should be a lot better suited to him. And I kind of feel the same way about Cantlay. I really like Cantlay's game for these next couple of events. I'm not sure if I'm going to bet him or anything like that, but I'll definitely have some exposure in some venue this week. Definitely like him for the PGA Championship. I have already bet him there. I'll be betting him more. So, at the same time, I might just do like some kind of Rahm Rory build and just see if we get like a mono and mono thing for the OWGR ranking. And because I don't really hate that either. I mean, I don't want to just fade off Jon Rahm just because he's a little bit more expensive this week. So that's kind of my thinking. I might do like some kind of Rahm Rory build, but if I had to choose one, I'd probably just go Rory. And realistically, I don't mind skipping over DeChambeau and Thomas just to get down to Cantlay because the savings are too good.
Yeah, and as long as I think I brought up on the show with you last week, Geoff, as long as there's no extreme wind in the forecast, I think Cantlay's in play every single week. When the conditions get tough, his game definitely suffers than other golfers. He hasn't quite figured that out. Justin Thomas, in his first couple of years out on tour, same similar thing. I'll never obviously forget the year Jordan Spieth won the British Open. I came in second in the Thunderdome with Justin Thomas missing the cut after coming in third to start the tournament. I'll never forget that. So I know that Justin Thomas isn't that good in the wind either. Maybe he's getting better now, but that memory sticks. Biggest salary bumps this week. Obviously, Jon Rahm, we've already mentioned, $2,100. But Billy Horschel, we mentioned also at the top of good course history. He gets a $1,000 price bump. Danny Berger's, speaking of course history, Danny Berger's 2 wins. Even after a miscut, he gets $900 added. Matt Fitzpatrick jumps up $900 as well. Tony Finau, $800. Xander Schauffele, $600. Rory McIlroy, $500. Matt Wolff, also $500. This is from the Memorial Tournament. I didn't look at last week's. It just wasn't a strong enough field to compare the odds. Jordan Spieth up $400, Max Homa up $400. Then salary dumps, maybe something we want to look at. I know this is not an event where we look at driving distance so heavily, but Cam Champ in a no-cut event is $6,200, down $1,200. Byung-Hyun An, very similar, down $1,200 from his Memorial price. DJ, after the withdrawal last week, gets a $1,000 price dump. Joel Damon, Keegan Bradley, also almost the bare minimum at $6,200, down $900 from their last. Nick Taylor, Phil Streelman, Sungjae Im down $700. Sungjae Im really getting to some value now. Let's see if maybe he can get something going the next couple of weeks. Finish it off, Morikawa, Matsuyama, Fowler, all down about $500. Which ones of those stick out the most to you, Geoff? Did any really catch your eye? Maybe on the price bump from Billy Horschel or a dump on Cameron Champ?
I mean, the bumps for me, Fitzpatrick and probably, Fitzpatrick and Berger probably stick out the most. I mean, it would be like the most Matthew Fitzpatrick thing ever to like really just go off for a win at 9K when, no one's probably going to play him now because who's going to play Fitzpatrick at 9K? I don't know, man. I like him. I mean, I think he's a solid enough player. He's talented, but like in this field, it seems a little ridiculous with guys like Fleetwood under him, Woodland. I just don't know how I'm going to be able to do that. So I think that one probably sticks out for me the most. Berger, I kind of get. He's got the course history here. I don't know if I would really want to click on 9,600 Daniel Berger either, but I probably want to do it more than Fitzpatrick. So those two definitely stick out the most. I think Horschel will still get some ownership at that price. He's got a really good record at this course too. And then for dumps, excuse me. I mean, the lower range is super interesting. I haven't even gone through all the names, but I mean, you got like Lowry down there at 6,600, who we both like. Champ, Tom Lewis, my guy, is 6,200. Yep. There's a lot of cheap players. You get back on the Joel Damon train after losing like a bajillion strokes on approach over his last 2 events. There's so much good value down there, though. Again, maybe it does lend itself to just eating the big salary bumps with guys like Fitzpatrick, because I don't really mind, stacking a couple. I don't really mind like using 2 guys from this range. And this range, I'm talking about like the 65 and under. I mean, I think Lewis has top 20 upside. Obviously, I've already said that, but Damon, Champ could bounce back. There's a lot to think about, obviously, this week. So from the first look, though, those are the guys that stick out the most. I think guys like Fitzpatrick, Berger are going to be really polarizing this week.
Yeah, Sal, Joel Damon was just chalky at 7,800 like 2 weeks ago on a pretty good field. Now he's 6,200 and a no cut. Got to be some interest there, right?
Yeah, I feel like I hope he doesn't pick up ownership, but I feel like he looks like maybe one of the best plays on the slate early on value-wise. Like, you look at this, he went to Muirfield Village back-to-back weeks, and he had his 2 worst tee to green performances in back-to-back weeks in the last decade. Literally in the last decade. So I'm not going to bang on that happening again. It was the same course. So let's just say he sucks at Muirfield Village, or at least he did this year. Yeah, because before that, dating back to January, I mean, he's making every cut. He has a ton of top 20, top 25 finishes, top 10. So for 6,200, like if he was 7,200, it's more of a thought. But yeah, 6,200, this is the spot where I want him. And if you're talking about the guys below 7K, he probably has like maybe right up there with like guys like Champ, maybe Kokrak, like some of the best irons in that range, which fits this course a little bit. So yeah, Kokrak, you mentioned Champ earlier. Those are guys that I'll be on more so in this field, especially because of their price points. It's easy. You can build balance if you want. You get a good lineup, but you throw one of those guys in there, and now you're getting like all the mega elites in a lineup too.
For sure, and because it's WGC, we get 20 golfers in that mid range, so the 9 to 8K, which is probably a little bit more than we're used to, but only 17 in the middle section, the 7Ks, which obviously again only 78 golfers, so it makes sense. First look in that 7K range, which is going to be your third or fourth, guy in the lineup. We already mentioned Sungjae Im. And hold on a minute here. How highly owned is do I have the right price? And there's no way I have the right price on here. Just give me a second here. I'm looking at Hideki Matsuyama. Is he the same price as Sungjae Im this week? Am I seeing something?
No, 8,900 today.
8,900. Okay, there we go. That's I don't know why my columns here aren't in line. I'm like, why is he 7,900? Let's talk about Sungjae Im though in the 7K, 7,900 range. He's a guy that we know has extreme talent, but has not found his irons in the month and a half that we've been back. Is this the week that he finds it? I mean, he's really been struggling, Geoff. I know that we all like him on this panel here. Are we going to see a bounce back anytime soon?
I don't know. I mean, look, if you're going to take a shot with Sungjae Im, it's usually at this kind of course where, it's a little bit more of an all-around test. He's a really good Bermuda putter. That's where his win came on at the Honda Classic. That's where he's challenged the most. This would be normally like a Sungjae Im test where it's not, you don't have to be super, super long or anything. You can kind of just be really consistent off the tee, good with your irons, and then he can also putt, right? So I like the setup for him, but yeah, he's been pretty objectively terrible over more than a month now, which, that's about the time frame I give guys, and now I like worry, and now I can't really say that he's obviously going below his baseline, so to speak, and you don't really know when he's going to come out of it. At the same time, 7,500 in a no-cut event, right? I mean, I think if anything is going to get Sungjae Im going, it's a no-cut event right now, because he can come in here, like I said with Paul Casey, he's going to have 4 rounds to figure it out. Maybe it doesn't happen in the first 2 days. Maybe we're just talking about like a T18, but at 7,500, if he figures it out even just a little bit more than what I said, I mean, he's going to be a fantastic value. So he's definitely someone I'm going to have to look into a little bit more, think about, but he needs to be on your radar at this price, I guess is what I'm saying, regardless of his recent form.
Yep. I totally agree. Sal, we got guys like Mark Leishman who have some good course history here at 7,700. Give me your top target as of right now in that 8 to 7K range that kind of just popped off of you when you first looked at the salaries. Like, whoa, this seems maybe a little bit too cheap for this guy. Yeah,
so below 7K or below 8K is what you're saying?
Below 8K, yep.
Yeah, I mean, it would be Sungjae, but outside of Sungjae, at first I marked him as like somebody I definitely want to get a good amount of, at least to look into. Looking into him more, I'll probably wait to see what ownership looks like. But Corey Connors is down there at 7,300. He kind of fit. He's just more advanced, I guess you can say, like version of what Cam Champ is going to be for me in like the 6K range. But it's the around the green plays his biggest concern. Shouldn't be as much of a factor here. All of his strengths are going to be brought out more so here. He's more accurate than I think people actually give him credit for. So yeah, I'm probably going to say Corey Connors, but it's kind of a pool between Connors, Willett, and Paul Casey. I'm probably going to go back to the well and Paul Casey. I mean, he just sets up. Paul Casey lost like 6 strokes putting last week. The week before he hurt himself by losing all of his around the green strokes on that one snowman. So I guess I'm just trying to build myself a narrative for feeling good if he disappoints again, but he probably won't miss. He can't miss the guy. Probably won't withdraw. So got that going for me. But yeah, Casey. So looking at Casey, Shaffler, Connors, and Willett stand out.
Yeah, that's a good call. I do like him to play all 4 days this week. I don't think there was any injury concern last week. I think he just couldn't putt. Very similar to Tommy Fleetwood. So, all right, let's give just one play below 6K, below 7K, sorry, before we get on out of here. And then we'll each give one Barracuda play. They've just posted odds to win, so they haven't posted top 20 or top 10 odds yet. So that's the other PGA Tour event that we have going on this week. It's a stable for scoring, so it's weird if you're looking at it and being like, hey, why is my golfer over par? He's not. They use a point system rather than a over to under par. So below 7K, we've talked about a few. If I had to pick one right now, I don't see why Joel Damon is priced up at 68 or 6,700. I would turn to him at 6,200. I think he really opens the salary terms. Geoff, how about you? Is it Tom Lewis or a little bit maybe a quote unquote safer option?
Yeah, I like the Damon call, and I do like Tom Lewis. I think they're both definitely in play, and those are both guys I'll probably have in some kind of player pool maybe or some kind of lineup. But I think I'm going to go higher, a little bit safer, I guess. Matt Wallace. I just like the upside with Matt Wallace. Dude is a really good competitor. And in this type of event, if he gets a sniff there coming in Sunday, he could really post like one of those kind of top 5 finishes, almost like we saw Webb finish last year, and really win some things for you. So I think 6,700 Matt Wallace, I really like that play.
Okay, Sal, how about you?
Yeah, outside of Damon, I'll say Brendan Todd. I think the withdrawal last week probably benefits us. I feel like he'd be more expensive if he goes out there and does anything in a weak field. 6,600. He's right now ranked since the return, the number one just accuracy player off the tee and fairways gained. So I like that a lot. And then you get an above average scorer. You get somebody who's right around average with his irons, and he's priced below 7K. So I think it's a pretty strong spot.
Yeah, me too. I do as well. So we'll quickly, before we get on out here, and before we do, make sure you give us a like and a subscribe on our YouTube channel. Of course, if you want to see specific pros or more information in this video, please let me know. I had somebody in the chat today ask me to look into a guy named Petty Theft, DK username, for next week's pro review, which he had a couple of big hits this past week and has been running very good. So we're going to check him out next week. I love stuff like that. Please let me know about that. So last one, I had a question. Is driving accuracy important this week? I think, again, with 62% of the fairways hit, I would say that you are going to gain some. You're definitely going to have better opportunities at birdies, of course, if you're hitting the fairway. So I think there's definitely a certain amount to be given there. Okay, so quickly, we're going to move on to the Barracuda. Just briefly, since there's not a lot of content out for it yet, we'll just give our one bet that we like opening up. So might as well, since we were chasing Chase Seifert last week in a better field, he's back to 90-1 in this field. Honestly, it just seems like, we just saw him play very well at the workday. 90-1 seems a little high. I thought that was a pretty good one. Sal, why don't you give us your one cue to bet, and then Geoff, you can give it to us as well.
Yeah, so just looking at this right now, I think Hadley in sort of that like 50-1 range looks pretty good, but I'll probably go with Lanto just to stay on brand, 33-1. Have to get him, even when he's not in the field, have to mention him in some show, so we get the alternative field here. But yeah, I'll go Lanto at this field. Totally truthful, like since the odds just posted, I haven't even looked into they didn't have any DraftKings pricing idea, any of like the course fits or anything like that. But actually, just based on the brand, I'll go Lanto.
Okay. Yeah, I should say on brand to go William Gordon too. So hopefully I didn't steal yours, Geoff. I don't think you were going to go William Gordon. Don't worry. If not, I didn't think so.
No, I'm going with another dude. Christopher Ventura, at 45-1 or better. Dude can really light it up with the putter, which I like because, yeah, you got to be good tee to green and like obviously Morikawa won with smashing his approaches, but he putted pretty well too. And we've seen guys like Greg Chalmers win. Troy Merritt almost won last year. Like dudes like that will win. You don't have to be bombing it off the tee. I think Putnam won here 1 year. I think he did. So, really good putters. and Ventura can bomb it. I really like him for this setup. He's been playing a lot better. So I'll take that 45, 50-1, whatever I can get.
Yeah, I was on him last week and was watching.
Yeah, so was I. That was one of the players.
It was brutal watching the shot tracker because I knew he had to get to -2 and just missed at -1. So definitely like him for this week. Well, we've gone a little bit over our time here. Thanks to Jordan for hanging out with us behind the glass. And of course, if you're looking for more PGA DFS content, sadly, we're not going to get contests for the Barracuda, but the WGC Mexico PGA DFS Strategy Show with Timothy Frank and Ben Raza. great show that is tomorrow at 2:30. So check that out. And of course, Ben Raz and I Wednesday night on our Live Before Lock. So until next time, everybody, thanks for joining the PGA DFS First Look Show. And we will see you next week. Same time, same place. Cheers.